This is the Huey Alert Podcast with Craig and Shelley Huey, bringing you the tools to transform our nation and culture, the intersection of faith and politics.
Hi, it's Craig Huey, the Huey Alert Podcast. I'm so glad you joined us. Hey, listen, you notice I don't have my beautiful bride with me, Shelley, but I am excited about the special guest we have, Michael Patrick Leahy, who is on podcasts and radio, and he's got Tennessee Star publication and others, but he's also an author and a movie producer. And Michael, welcome to our program.
Craig, it's always great to be with you.
Well, you know, Michael, here's the thing. What is going on right now is absolutely incredible, where you've got Jim Comey indicted. You've got John Bolton indicted. You have calls for Jack Smith, John Brennan, a number of different people to be indicted for crimes that they did in kind of like a deep state operation against conservatives, Republicans, Christians, Trump. And a lot of people in the media, a lot of people think, wait a minute, what's happening right now with targeting Comey and these others, that is retribution. That's getting even with your political enemy. That's not anything more than what happened against Trump and the Republicans and conservatives and the Christians. So here's my question for you, Michael. What is going on? Is this justice or is this retribution?
Easy answer, it's justice. And the reason it's justice is because in the Biden administration, the Department of Justice was illegally weaponized against political enemies, in particular Donald Trump and anybody who is an ally of Donald Trump. The reason that the Justice Department has to look at the numerous violations of the due process rights of Donald Trump, of his family, of his supporters, is because if those illegal acts, alleged illegal acts, are allowed to continue, we will descend into a banana republic. We can't have that. And look, all of these cases that have been brought so far are based on facts. They are grand jury indictments. Interestingly enough, these are grand jury indictments not from the District of Columbia, which voted 92% for Kamala Harris. These are indictments from I think it's the Eastern District of Maryland and the Eastern District of Virginia. Virginia in the case of Comey and Letitia James, Maryland in the case of John Bolton. Those are different grand jury pools, but that's the process. If you have probable cause and somebody is brought before the grand jury by the prosecuting U.S. attorney, the grand jury in our legal system is the entity that actually issues the indictment. And then from there, you talk about due process. Then after the indictment by a grand jury, the defendants are brought before a judge and they're arraigned and they have a trial, which can either be before the judge itself, a bench trial, or a jury.
Wow. Well, here's the thing, Michael. You've just laid out the reality that I see. But, you know, when I take a look at what happened during the deep state operation that was taking place under President Obama and then carried on with Joe Biden, basically what you had here was looking for a problem, looking for a crime, making up a problem and crime, spying illegally and unconstitutionally, just a variety of things of the abuse of the power of the government, targeting a political opponent. And yet, that is the narrative that they're giving now with Trump. So you're saying that this is going to pass crimes, but in some sense, is it still targeting a political enemy?
Well, there are political enemies. I don't think they're being targeted because they're political enemies. I think they're being investigated
Yes.
because there was probable cause
Yes.
that they violated the law.
Yes.
Now, interestingly enough, in the communist regime, which you're familiar with in the Soviet Union,
Yeah.
Joseph Stalin had a famous chief of the police and intelligence.
Yeah.
His last name was Beria, who told Stalin, "Show me the man.
Yes.
I'll show you the crime."
That's right.
And that's what really happened under the Biden administration.
Yeah.
And they just went after and targeted Donald Trump. Look, Letitia James, the Attorney General of the state of New York, it was her election platform. If you elect me, I will prosecute Donald Trump.
Right. So there was this abuse of government going on, and that's where I wrote that book, The Deep State, simply because I wanted to expose not only what was happening, but who these faceless, unelected bureaucrats are that are wielding so much power and influence. Well, today, what we're seeing is justice being served and also the rule of law being upheld. And I think that if you were to talk to our audience, what would they say to their family, to their son, to their daughter, grandkid, to their neighbor, to their pastor, to people in church? What would you say that they should say about what's going on right now and is meeting the headlines with a false narrative of simply retribution?
Yeah, well, that's a good question, Craig. I think what you'd say is the American legal system is playing out as it should. So evidence was presented to a grand jury in all these instances by prosecuting attorneys, and the grand juries basically decided to indict James Comey and Letitia James on the mortgage fraud allegation, and John Bolton on claims that he mismanaged classified documents. And so that's part of the process, but they get their day in court.
Yeah.
And they have very expensive attorneys. Abby Lowell, I think, is one of the attorneys involved in representing John Bolton, and I think there's some other high-powered attorneys are representing James Comey. James Comey has said, well, he's opted for a jury trial. That's his right. And look, the government will present its case, and his defense will present the case.
Yep.
And the jury will make a determination.
Yeah.
That's how our legal system works.
Right, which is great, and I think we're going to have justice. I think that those who violated the law are going to be punished, and I think that's a good thing to show future bureaucrats, future government leaders, future presidents. They can't overstep and ignore the rule of law. They can't ignore the Constitution. But let me ask you this. Let's say in the next election, there's another Democrat. We all of a sudden have Madani. We all of a sudden have AOC, who becomes a president. They will try to use the government again to go after its political enemies. How can we stop this from happening?
Well, just as an aside, Mamdani is not qualified to run for president. He's not a natural-born citizen under any definition.
You're right.
Born in Uganda. To non-American citizen parents.
Yeah.
Asterisk. However, I will say the following, that for our constitutional republic to survive, we can never allow another Democrat to be president of the United States. Why do I say that? I think it's very obvious that the Democratic Party and the leadership of the Democratic Party has lost its mind. And they are committed to lawfare and abusing our legal system. And if there's another Democrat president, doesn't matter who it is, that president will abuse our legal system. And so if we want our constitutional republic to survive, we cannot ever allow a a Democrat to win the presidency. I mean, that's just the bottom line on it. And we've seen there's plenty of evidence to that effect.
Well,
right
you're making news right now, Michael, by calling for basically the extinction of the Democratic Party.
Well, I'm not calling for the extinction. I'm saying that if they were to win the presidency again, it would be the destruction of our constitutional republic.
So,
therefore, American citizens must work like crazy to make sure they never gain power again.
So basically what you're saying is that, number one, in the 2026 election, the Republicans have to win. 2028 presidential election, Republicans have to win. And this has to be done in such a way that the Democrats basically morph into something else that is more electable than the radical pro-socialist politicians that are leading the party right now.
If you look at the history of the country, political parties have come and gone to a
That's
degree.
right. The wings.
George Washington warned against partisanship and establishment of political parties, but they came into effect very early on with the Federalists of John Adams versus the Democrat Republicans of Thomas Jefferson and James Madison. So there was partisan two-party system in the country almost from its inception. However, now the Whig Party, which had been there for a long time, disappeared.
It disappeared.
And was replaced by the Republican Party.
And the Republican Party lost a couple of elections, and out of nowhere comes Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah. And now what's interesting, though, about this is the Democrat Party of our youth no longer exists. There is an institution called the Democratic Party, but their policies are, neo-Marxist, let's be honest.
Oh, absolutely.
And that is un-American.
Yes.
And yet there are a number of Americans who support that. What's the number? Right now, maybe it's 20%. That's not going to be enough to win elections, but it is a growing number. And the reason it's growing is because many of our younger generation have been propagandized in K-12 public schools to hate America.
Yeah.
And
that's where we need school choice.
And they hate our constitutional republic and want to destroy it.
Yeah.
That's why I've said, if we want our constitutional republic to survive, we can never allow a Democrat to win an election. Now, I say allow it. There will be an election. We have to beat them fair and square in order to have that, to maintain our constitutional republic.
So, Michael, my book, The Deep State, focused on Obama, and the updates focused on what happened under Biden. But in the book, I talked about how the deep state has always been with us. You have these bureaucrats, these unelected people trying to gain power. And really, when I go back and I look at the history of the U.S., we see this kind of deep state influence of some type going on, maybe not as ideological as it is now. Obama turned the bureaucracy ideologically. But back in when I was in high school, there was the whole issue of Richard Nixon and getting into college, the whole issue of the Watergate. And you took a look and you created something, a documentary, a film, how the deep state took down Richard Nixon. What an incredible name and what an intriguing title. As we end, tell me what this is all about.
Well, back in 1972, after the Watergate break-in, there was basically 2 years of deep state effort to take down President Nixon, and they succeeded in the end when he resigned in August of 1974. A young attorney at that time, Jeffrey Shepard, Harvard Law School graduate, was working in the Nixon White House, first in the Domestic Policy Council, and then later as part of his defense team. And he has unearthed a whole bunch of information subsequently, in the subsequent 50 years or so, which indicate quite clearly that there were more than a dozen due process violations.
Wow, that's a bombshell.
A federal district court judge, John Sirica in Washington, D.C., numerous violations of the grand jury secrecy standard that's been set up for so long, and a regime, media regime, that was all part of the plan to take Nixon down.
Wow.
They succeeded. They should not have. Donald Trump, actually, they tried to take him down, but they failed.
Yes. Ha! Wow. Well, listen, it sounds like an incredible introduction to the deep state operating back in the 60s. Can you tell me how I can watch this film?
Yeah, just go to, just type in how the deep state took down Richard Nixon, and it's available still on Rumble for free for a period of time. And you can watch it on YouTube or go to michaelpatrickleahy.com. How the Deep State Took Down Richard Nixon. It's 90 minutes. It's very good, if I do say so myself.
Very good. Michael, that is awesome. I appreciate your time. I encourage everybody to go to this movie and be able to see it and learn. And again, it's how the Deep State took down Richard Nixon. And Michael, do you mind if I pray with you?
Sure.
Father, I just thank you for Michael. I thank you for his wisdom, and I thank you for his knowledge. I ask, God, that you would energize him to be able to stand for truth, stand and articulate that which is right, and be able to expose that which is evil. In Jesus Christ's name, amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Michael, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Until next time, listen, take this podcast, video, audio, you can post it. You can send it out to your email list. You can text it to friends. Let's get this word out so they learn not only about this movie, but also this important issue of justice versus retribution. Until next week, when Shelley will be back, God bless you guys.
Thanks for joining us this week. We are listener-supported, so please consider partnering with us by donating at craighuey.com or by signing up for our free newsletter. We look forward to being with you next week. And don't forget to share this podcast with others.
Hi, it's Craig Huey. And you know what's exciting today is that in Washington, D.C., we're finally seeing the dismantling of the deep state. Never before have so many ideologically driven bureaucrats been fired. And what is happening is going to be transformational. You see, these ideological bureaucrats are the ones who are embedded within the federal government, the massive government complex that is basically destroying our freedoms, involved in censorship, against religious liberty, the ones that are helping hurt our economy. Because what these ideological bureaucrats want to do is they want to transform our culture and our politics through the government. And now, with the disruption of Trump and the cabinet picks, that is being dismantled. So what is the deep state? And when you hear about this, what is it? Well, that's why I wrote this book called The Deep State, 15 Surprising Dangers You Should Know. In this book, I talk about what the deep state is. I explain how it began. I talk about what they did in the last 5-6 years. In this book, I talk about Obama's secret army, the group of bureaucrats that Obama implanted to be able to subvert Trump from ever being able to hire people he wanted, and why their plot did not work. And you're going to read about so many different things to get an idea, even of media collusion with the deep state. Want to know what the deep state is? This is the best way to learn and find out. So take a look on your screen how to order this book. I'd be glad to sign it for you. And if you use that QR code, or if you use the text to be able to buy it. If you buy it on Amazon, you'll get it maybe a day or two sooner, and I won't be able to sign it, but you can get it also on Amazon. You can get an audio version of the book as well. And so be sure to get my book, The Deep State, 15 Surprising Dangers You Should Know. Thank you.